What's going on? This is Sherry, and you are tuned into She Said What She Said, the podcast where we interview badass women in the sports world and beyond. And I think it's officially T-shirt weather here in Chicago. This is my, I think, second or third week in a row wearing a T-shirt for the show. So I think we've gone through the sweatshirt collection, and we are now going to re-go through the T-shirt collection. So always a fun day when I can start to switch the wardrobe. This evening we have a pretty exciting guest. She's actually the best friend of our guest from last week. So if you listened in on Miss Gigi Johnson, this is her other half. I did not realize they have actually been best friends since Odessa College, junior college days. So our guest, she played basketball at Odessa, blew out her knee, transferred to Arkansas, was an athletic trainer for the men's basketball program, also helped recruit Gigi to go to Arkansas. And then from there, she spent 14, 15 years as a basketball coach. She was at Stephen F. Austin, had 2 conference championships there, but decided to pivot her career. And then from there, she's written 3 books. I'm sure she's probably working on a 4th. I'm sure there's an idea in there. She is a mindset performance coach, which sounds amazing. I need this. Motivational speaker and just all around badass woman, just for her own personal shits and giggles, her own personal goals. She did Mount Kilimanjaro and then wrote a book about it, which I am very excited to not only hear about, but also read. I'm a big reader, and I love to read about things that I personally would never do, which include hiking a mountain. So without further ado, let's bring her in. Miss Jodi Greve, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was awesome.
It's like I try to get every little thing. You had so many facets to who you are as a person. I was like, let me try to get them all. Get them all in here. Oh, but thank you for coming on. As you're telling me, best friends with Gigi. So super fun. And what I was going to tell you before we got on, I was looking at your Instagram. You did one of the trips in February. That is one of my best friends' dream trip. That's right. You did Carnival in Trinidad.
Yes, we did. And that was actually my best friend's dream trip. Gigi had always wanted to go. And back in September, one of Chris's other former athletes had just gone to Carnival in Barbados, and she was super excited about it. And she is actually originally from Trinidad and planning it. And so one thing led to another. And G knows I'm usually down for an adventure. So we ended up at Carnival, and that was an amazing experience. Like, I want to go back. I want to do it again. And just, it was so much fun on so many different levels, and experiencing a different country and culture is always mind blowing to me. I absolutely love it, because while the United States is a very good mixture of cultures, it's really different when you actually go to that country and you see the people in their element and what they celebrate, how they celebrate. It's just a totally different experience. I'm very thankful that I get to do stuff like that.
That's incredible. We are actually going to the Toronto one this year.
Oh, that's
in August. Yeah. So I'm just saying, if you and Gigi want to run it back, we'll be, myself and 2 of my girlfriends are, yeah. She was like, Trinidad's going to be pretty expensive, but the Toronto one seemed like a little bit more in the budget price range.
Yeah, I've heard Toronto, and the one they have in England, I can't remember what city it is, but it's pretty big. But I've heard those 2 are next best as far as overall good experience.
Yeah.
But definitely want to check out another one. Trinidad was hard. That's going to be really hard to beat, because it was also the first time they've had it since COVID.
Right. Yeah.
Just everybody was so excited to be there, and they had over I want to say they had like 10,000 people that were there. I could be totally off on that number, but
Probably correct.
it was an insane amount of people just in the band that we were in, and I believe they had 5 or 6 bands. So, yeah, that's going to be an amazing experience.
And that's the thing too. Yeah, like looking through the bands and they're like currently releasing the outfits and the costumes, and it's like, how do you? I want this one, I want that, but yeah, we have to like find a costume that's going to look good on all 3 of our skin tones. You know what I mean? Like, don't put me in the bright yellow. That's not going to work.
Surprisingly, like it's crazy how the colors that they did come up with and everything, and because we didn't know exactly how it went, she and I kind of wanted to stay together. But
Yeah,
now that we
of
know how
course.
it is, like we could totally get different costumes within the same band, just
Sure.
a different group or whatever. So now that we're experienced, we know how we'll do it next year.
Well, now we'll know to go to for advice.
Yeah.
But yes, yes, I saw that. I was like, oh my God, so excited for this. But let's talk more about you. So you and Gigi met at Odessa. So where are you originally from? Are you from Texas?
I am. So I grew up in a small town called Kennedy. It's about an hour south of San Antonio. It's
Mhm.
only got about 3,000 people, real small. However, we lived there till I was 10, and then we moved out to Del Rio, which is on the border of Texas and Mexico.
Mhm.
It's basically straight west of San Antonio. And we were there from 5th grade through my sophomore year, middle of my sophomore year of high school, moved out to Sierra Vista, Arizona. And we were there a very quick, short 10 months because Halloween of my junior year, we moved back to Kennedy. My dad had actually gotten a job in North Carolina, but since he was going to be traveling so much out of the year, like basically 3 weeks out of the month, and my grandparents had a small cattle ranch, my grandfather had unfortunately had some heart attacks and strokes that
Mhm.
left him in a wheelchair. So my mom and I moved back to Kennedy because at the time I wanted to go to college in Texas. So it kind of made sense. And I ended up graduating from Kennedy and ended up with a basketball scholarship to
Mhm.
Odessa College.
That's fantastic. How did you get into basketball? Was it like something, within your family or just
Not
something
at
you
all.
picked up? No, no, okay. Not at all.
My family is now my mom loves to watch sports.
Mhm.
My dad actually did pole vault and was really big into that
Nice.
part in track. And I think he's the reason that I am such a fan of track as well.
Mhm.
Gigi kind of helped along with that once I met her. But I started playing because I'm 5'9" and I've been 5'9" since I was in 6th grade.
Mm.
So I was very tall for my age, and it just seemed like the thing to do. And I like to be active in everything. And I played volleyball, basketball, track all through high school. In my my junior and senior year, I played golf because I found out that the tournaments were on Mondays and Tuesdays, and my track meets were usually Thursday evenings and Fridays. So that meant I only had to go to school basically on Wednesday. Sorry, mom, but it's true.
Fair. I like that.
Yeah. So, but basketball just it became a love and a passion for me.
Mhm.
I got to be I've always been rough and tough, and didn't mind banging around with people, and that gave me that outlet, and running up and down the court, running circles around a track, not really my thing for very long,
I
but
mean, some of us just go around one time and call it a day. So,
well, and it's funny because
or even parts of one time.
the older I got, the more I did enjoy like the long distance running, and especially now that I can't run anymore,
Mhm.
I loved it. And when um, when we were here at Arkansas during the fall, the girls would have their long run or shakeout run on Friday mornings, and it
Mm.
was just down to the baseball field and back. It was about 2 miles, and I used to go run with them on Friday mornings, and that was my one little puff of the chest because even though I know they weren't trying their hardest, I still if you can beat some of those high quality athletes, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
at what, it makes you feel good.
Sure. Sure. Take those little wins.
Exactly.
And I assumed you played point guard in basketball,
I didn't.
shooting guard.
I was actually, I was what now you would call a utility player.
Mm,
So
mhm.
basically, whatever I needed to do to get on the court.
Okay.
When I ended up back at Kennedy, they like I said, it was a very small town, so I actually ended up playing post.
So you
Um,
might have been the tallest then at that.
yeah, I definitely was, which was really scary if I'm only 5'9".
Yeah, yeah, I had to think. I was like, wait, small town. You might not be. Yeah, because normal. I mean, now it's like,
Yeah,
I mean, if
I would be a small point guard now.
you would, I mean, imagine like being 6 foot tall and trying to play center in college, you would just get yourself
Man.
annihilated. It's yeah, yeah. It's crazy how people have been. I don't know. I don't know if people are getting taller or if they're like finding the taller people to play or more women are getting into it. But it does seem like the women are getting taller and taller and taller. Um, and it's great to see. Another question about Gigi. Did you ever see her dunk? Because I did not know she could dunk.
So that story I did watch last week, and it's so funny. I was watching with my boyfriend, and I had literally a minute before she told that story, I had told him that story. And yes, and I was her athletic trainer. And so I was not very happy with her when she came in saying her wrist was hurting. And I asked her how, and she told me, I'm like, wait a minute, what? You did what? And I had seen her touch the rim before. So
Hmm.
um I knew that she could. And it's crazy. And I know she had talked about her height or whatever, and it's still baffling to me that she's that much shorter than me. And thinking about all of the things that she was able to do, but yeah, she got up there. She
Yeah,
definitely.
she's literally my height. Because when she said that, I was like, "Wait, is Gigi taller than I remember?" Because I swear to God, she was my height. That is wild. Well, yeah, most people if they're 5'9", they can't dunk, so that's okay if you can't.
Right, exactly.
you're,
She
you're
got
not
some.
a freak of nature. So you said though your college career kind of it came to a grinding halt.
It did. I actually tore it the middle of my freshman year. I had tore the ACL, but it wasn't a complete tear. Most people tear
Hmm.
it all the way across. Mine was torn across, like it was still attached to each
Hmm.
other, but it was like slit through the middle. So I had to get scoped up because I tore my meniscus as well, and played with the brace, and it was all good. But that summer, I went home to play with some guys at the YMCA, and there was a guy there that did not like women playing basketball and didn't think that they belonged on the court. And this was a very large dude, and I'm not talking tall either. He was rounder than a basketball. And we were playing, and my team was actually down. I will never forget this. We go to 9, they had 7, we had 3. And I'm going in for the left side for a layup, and he comes over and runs right into my left knee. And
Mm.
I go down, and he stands over and he's like, "That's why you shouldn't be out here on the court." And
Ugh.
I was livid. And thankfully, it was really good to see like the rest of the guys kind of were like, "Hey, dude, like back off. Like that wasn't cool. It's really dirty or whatever." And they're checking on me, make sure I'm all right. And I was like, "Yeah, I'm good. They're like, "Well, we'll get you a sub." I'm finishing this game. And we came back and beat them 9-7, which I was very
Nice.
excited about. But I was like, all right, like I do need a sub now. I can't keep going. And I took off my knee brace, and I just saw my knee swell up, and I was like, yeah, that's.
Oh.
So at that point, found out that it was completely obliterated. Like there was no sign of an ACL at that point. So my basketball career, I was very lucky to have gotten to junior college to
Mhm.
play. But after that, I just, like I said, I had to face reality. And at the time I wanted to be an athletic trainer. So that's what
Okay.
I decided to do.
Okay, so that was always your goal. And then you transferred to Arkansas,
Mhm.
trainer for like, the men's basketball team. How was that being a female trainer on the men's team?
It was good. Obviously, boundaries had to be set early, and
Mhm.
if, like a lot of people, if I knew then what I know now, I think there would be still be some things that would be a little different. But
Mhm.
not only between us, but our athletic trainer, like there were the boundaries set, And I also looked at those guys like my brothers, like
Hmm.
they I looked at them in a different light, and so I treated them as athletes, and then off the court they were just like my brothers. So it was really cool, though. I mean, Nolan Richardson was the head coach at the time. He's a Hall of Fame coach,
Hmm.
and that was amazing. And he's the reason I got to Arkansas, and he's also the reason I decided to get into coaching.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I was going to ask, what made you want to pivot from athletic training to coaching?
So I saw
Training under a coach?
Yeah, so I saw his passion for the game, and I
Hmm.
don't know why it never made sense for me to be a coach. When I would knew I wasn't gonna play anymore, I thought athletic training was just the way, because I was always in the training room. So it kinda just it seemed like it
Yeah.
made sense to
You
me.
just live there.
Exactly. So why not, make a career out of it? And, I don't know, I saw his passion and love, and I felt the same way about it. And literally 3 months into being a trainer there, I was like, "Yeah, I wanna coach instead."
Hmm.
But I didn't know how I was gonna go about it, since I was not a collegiate basketball player, I was not
Hmm.
on the women's side, and one of the assistant coaches at the time was Mike Anderson, and so I went to him and kinda asked him, "What do I need to do to be a coach? Like, how can I get this started?" I wasn't going to give up my gig as a student athletic trainer for the men's team by any means, but I wanted to keep that, and still, because that was like a free internship, learning from Coach Richardson.
Right.
So Coach A just helped me. He gave me some ideas, and one of them was, working basketball camps during the summertime, and that was
Mm.
back when camps were a really big thing. And so I would sit down, make a calendar of any of the colleges within an 8-hour driving distance from Fayetteville, and emailed all of the coaches, and it's like, "Hey, I want to work camp. Can I come work?" And all the responses I got back, it worked out perfect. So the
Mm.
3 summers of college, I just spent traveling basically all over the South working basketball camps, and that was my way of networking, since I didn't have any other sort of way to be able to do that.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. Coaching can be so hard, so hard to break into, because it's such a high profile gig, right?
Mhm.
But it's like, you don't have to be a good player to be able to coach. And just
Right,
because you were a good player doesn't mean you're going to be a good coach. Those things
right.
aren't always correlated. And you see a lot of the times that, like, people, really good players, try to become coaches, and yikes, they can't teach for shit, right? They just kind of go through, like, well, this is how I did it, so why can't you do it?
Exactly, exactly.
Coaching is a very different skill. Did you, like, just attending the camps, like, did you do any, like, training certifications? Or I don't know how it is in basketball, but, like, is it just kind of more for a free for all, who you know and what you know?
Basically, yes. I had a friend tell me one time, "Who you know gets you the job, what you know keeps you the job," even though
Mm.
that's not grammatically correct, but it's very true. So the more people that you knew, that you talked to, that was your end to be able to get there, and then obviously they need to know that you know a little bit about the game, and then, um, that would help keep help keep you employed, and as well as recruiting, and now recruiting's it's even a whole nother beast. With coaching, is going to be who can bring in the players. But 20 years ago, 25 years ago,
Mhm.
it was about who you knew to help you land that job.
Absolutely. So, where was your first coaching job after Arkansas?
I decided I wasn't quite ready for a real job, so I decided to
Mhm.
be a GA,
Hmm.
and ended up at the University of Montevallo in Alabama, and I was a GA there for 2 years. And Montevallo is about 30 minutes south of Birmingham, and the
Okay.
best way for me to describe it is, if you've seen Forrest Gump, the all-girls school that Jenny goes to, that's 30 minutes from Tuscaloosa, that is Montevallo. However, it is not all girls anymore.
Got it.
Yeah, they've got a wide variety of men's sports there too.
Hmm. Amazing. How long did you stay there?
So I was there for 2 years, and then I went to Tyler Junior College in Tyler, Texas, and
Mhm.
was there for 4 years. And again, connections and staying in contact with people. The woman that was and she still is the head coach at TJC,
Mhm.
was an assistant at Arkansas when
Mm.
I was a student there. My first 2 years. Yes, my first 2 years, were her last 2 years at Arkansas, and then, like I said, I just stayed in contact with her, um, through while I was in grad school or whatnot, and then when she had a position open. That was probably the most fun interview because I was actually on the beach in Florida, and we
Oh,
did a phone
nice.
interview. That was
Nice.
pretty awesome.
Nice. When you were going through, these different jobs, I assume you were always with women's programs, correct?
Yes, yes.
How many times were there other women coaches, like, either at your school or at schools you're playing against? Was it primarily men? Did you see a decent number of women coaching?
Where I was, it was mostly women in the women's
Mm,
sports.
okay.
And it's something that I've noticed that isn't necessarily the same now. And even more so because I coach AAU basketball now.
Hmm.
And especially in AAU, there are not a lot of female coaches. But back then, it was primarily women in the women's sports.
Mm, okay. That's good to hear. It's because I listened, there was a podcast, I think, what's it called? In Her Court, that came out, I want to say last year. No, no, 2 years ago.
Mm.
I listened to it when I was running in Hawaii
Oh, there
last
you go.
year. But it was going through the history of women's basketball, right? When it was becoming an NCAA sport, and how it started with women coaches. And then when there started to be money in it, then the men wanted to go in, and men that couldn't, make it in the men thought they could do women, and teams would be like, oh, we tried one woman coach, didn't work out, so let's go back to men. But it is curious, to hear, because there are some conferences, and I've had a couple other coaches on here too. They're like, I think it was another JUCO conference. She was like, it's all women.
Mhm.
So it's interesting how you have this, kind of. It's almost like it's like conference by conference, or something. There's no real rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because 2 years ago, I believe it was, the SEC actually had 6 or 7 Black female head coaches, for women's
Remember
basketball,
this?
which
Hmm.
was amazing. And I wanna say it's only dropped by 1 because the one I'm thinking, and yeah, because it was, Mississippi State. She had resigned due to health reasons, so
Hmm.
it's only dropped, by 1, but um, it's still an amazing, a number, especially for the type of conference that the SEC is
Absolutely.
in women's basketball, really in all
Absolutely.
sports.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's great. So we had a question come through, asking you about your motivational speaking. Does speaking to large audiences come natural to you? Still struggling with that myself.
Well, I would say whenever a lot of times it depends on the topic, and the
Mhm.
majority of my speaking has to do with my story of Kilimanjaro. And that's how I also feel about writing. When I was younger, I absolutely hated writing. But when
Mm,
I found myself when I was writing these books, but because it was my story and I knew what happened, it came a lot easier. And so same goes for speaking, is because it is my story. I'm passionate about it. It does seem to come a little bit easier, than if it's something that I'm having to make up and design, or it's a subject that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. But because of the impact that Killy had on me, I'm passionate about sharing it with anybody really who's willing to listen, because it really can, I believe that it can really impact people in all different walks of life, not just people with necessarily my background as a former athlete and competitor and coach.
mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, my normal job that I do during the day, I give trainings, I give presentations, some, and I mean, I've never had issue with public speaking, but I have had formal training on how to speak to a large audience. And so I do think for people that struggle with public speaking or speaking to large audiences, like investing in actual training for that is very useful, because I thought, I was like, oh, I'm great at this. And then I saw myself on video and I was like, yikes, Cher, what you doing up there? You know what I mean? Because they used to tell you like scan the audience, but it's supposed to like lock here, kind of move around. And
Mhm.
it's this interesting correlation of like, if you're scanning between people, you're going to say, if you don't speak while you're moving your head, you don't say, just like these weird things. So I would definitely recommend people that are going through there to get some training on it.
I had never heard that, and I'm gonna be more conscious of that for sure, just seeing how that is. I do think that having some trainings, like, you could do Toastmasters, uh,
Hmm.
and it
That's the one I was trying to remember what the name of that one is.
yeah, I did Toastmasters. I went for a little bit, and it was right before COVID, so we all obviously
Mm.
know what happened there, and it was very interesting. It's also interesting to see the wide variety of people that are in Toastmasters and hearing their different stories and what they choose to speak on and that kind of thing. But Toastmasters is definitely something, and it's relatively inexpensive. Um,
Yeah.
and you can go for a couple times for at
Hmm.
least here in the chapters here, you could go a couple times for free.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, the thing was that was one I had never heard, but he was saying, like, break up the room into a quadrant, only speak when your like head is not moving. Because if you start scanning, you start saying and I wasn't really someone that was saying but the people that were, when they switched to kind of not speaking unless they were looking exactly at a person or a quadrant, it was done. It was over. And just all these like little things, and also large hand motions for large presentations. Don't sit there and play with your fingers.
And that
But yeah,
works really well for me because I'm like sitting here with my hands in my lap, trying not to do all of
I
it.
know, right? I try not to do it either.
I am a big hand. I feel like you can get more emotion and I can't think of another word, but you just get more of that across through
Yeah, I
the
think
hand
it's like
motions.
bigger, grander hand motions rather than a bunch of small, like twitchy ones. Uh,
Mhm.
I think that was it's interesting though, right? I mean, everyone has their thing of like public speaking. Apparently, is like one of the number one fear for people, and it's like, really? Oh, okay, but everyone's got their thing. But I understand, I get it. Everyone's watching you and judging. We're not judging, though. We promise.
Right.
Oh, so, kind of going through your coaching journey, because then you end up at your uh, there to there, and then you ended up at Stephen F. Austin, because you were there for a decent time period, correct?
I was there for 5 years,
5.
and
Mm-hmm.
one thing about SFA is it was a like, the staff that I worked with and our players, especially the last 3 years, they were amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't if things are good, you're really trying to, why would you leave something like that? But a lot of stuff started weighing down on me. And I've always felt that no matter what your job is, if the majority of it starts to feel like work, you need to find something new to do.
Mm.
There's always going to be aspects of your job that do feel like work, like who wants to fill out a business expense or, stuff like that, tedious stuff. But if the majority of it starts to feel like work, you really should find something new to do because you don't want to become miserable. You don't want to make people around you miserable. And then you don't want to
Right.
make people not want to be around you because you're miserable. And a lot of the things were starting to weigh on me because a lot of people think that because I was single, I had it easy, I had it made. I
Mm.
didn't have a spouse to take care of, I didn't have children to take care of. While yes, I understand, and those that are married, kudos to their spouses because we know during the season it is if they have kids, they essentially become a single parent often
Right.
because
Mm-hmm.
of the amount of time that we spend. However, for for me, it was really a lot of stuff started weighing on me, not just at home, but at work. And so when things were hard at work and I'd come home, I still had to mow the grass. I still had
Mm,
to do the dishes. I still had to cook dinner if I wanted to eat. I had to clean the house, so all of that stuff, it just really started weighing down on me. And again, I didn't want to become that miserable coach that people
mhm,
didn't want to be around. I saw it happen too often to other coaches in the business, and I just didn't want to become that person. But at the same time, we've got these really great teams, and I loved our players, the people I
a
worked
couple of conference championships, yeah.
with. I mean, who wants to give that up, right? Like, it was amazing. And
Mhm,
so then in 2015, my head coach at the time got the job at the University of Kansas, and so everything just started going through my mind. If he
mm,
takes me, do I want to go? If he can't take me, do I want to stay? Do I want to go somewhere else? And nothing about that sounded fun or
mm,
enticing, right? And mind you, Kansas is in the Big 12. I knew it was a rebuilding part for him. And that was 7 years ago. And they're just, the last 2 years, they're just now seeing the success.
mhm,
But it's the Big 12. That's another great conference for women's
yeah,
basketball. Who wouldn't want to do that? So when I knew when that didn't seem exciting, I knew that I had to get out. And that was scary. That was
mhm.
really, really scary. And I honestly, I had no idea what the heck I was going to do. None.
So, yeah, I mean that is right because you thought you wanted to be an athletic trainer, you decided coaching is a thing, and then after over a decade, it's what is the next chapter? How did you kind of, I don't want to say find yourself, but how did you get into the positions that you are in now?
I decided, so my head coach, his wife worked with um, a company. I had been taking the products. It's Juice Plus, and it's essentially fruits and vegetables in a capsule.
Mhm,
And I was a relatively healthy person, healthy eating, healthy lifestyle, that kind of thing. And so I decided to do that, and I also got my certification as a health coach. And so
mm,
decided I could do that because I could still travel. I knew I wanted to be able to travel, and I was, well, still technically am a health coach for several years, and that is when Kilimanjaro kind of came up,
okay.
and decided that I was going to do Kilimanjaro, and then that is really what got me to where I am now.
Why Kilimanjaro? What was it about that made you say, "Yep, that's the big crazy goal I wanted to do"?
I'm going to really date myself right now. In 2006, a friend of mine from high school in Arizona posted on MySpace that
Yes.
she that she had climbed Kili, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder if I could do that," like thinking physically, because at that
Mhm,
time I had had I had had 4 knee surgeries, and
mm,
wanted to, like, can I do this physically, right? Looked it up. Yes, I could do it physically. Financially, not a chance. I was only earning like $18,000 a year when I was coaching at TJC. So that got sent to the back burner. But it just
mhm,
always stuck in my head.
mm,
And mind you, before I really knew about Kilimanjaro, I didn't even know where it was. I had heard of it, but had no clue of where it was. But I was
sure.
like, oh,
Mhm,
that looks fun. Why don't I do it? Why not? And so then just fast forward to 2018, it kind of kept just coming up, and
mhm,
I had asked some friends, like, would this be something people be interested in? I was willing, like, I knew the time and the financial responsibility it would take for people, so I was willing to wait a year, like, let's plan this out. I'll look up
mhm.
all the details, who's willing to go. And whenever I got around to actually, setting a date, all this, it was crickets. I didn't hear from anybody.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, no, Jodi, you're on your own with that one.
Yeah. Mhm.
But in it was August of 2018, a friend of mine called me and was trying to make this big life decision, and she asked me for some advice, and I was like, just say yes and figure out the details later, you
Mm.
know? And I woke up the next morning and was like, why am I not doing that with Kilimanjaro? Mind you,
Mm.
at this point, add in a back surgery and a shoulder surgery to my list of surgeries.
Why not?
I mean, hey, no better time like the present, right? And so
Right.
that morning, I called my travel agent, who's a really good friend of mine, and now every time I say, I'm like, am I moving my head?
You can say every now and then.
Right.
It's okay.
I called Amber, and within 24 hours, I had my plane ticket booked. I had the trip booked. Had no idea how I was going to pay for it, but I had just said yes, and I was going to figure out the details later. So I did.
How far in advance did you give yourself?
Oh, I don't recommend this at all.
Because you said August 2018, right? Is when you
And it was August 28th. So almost September.
okay, August.
I
Okay.
left January 8th of 2019. So I had 4 months.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that is not recommended. Not recommended at all.
No, I find out later they recommend like 6 to 9 months worth of training. But in my
I would
head,
say
like,
even a year. I had one of our former Penn State women on here who's like now a mountaineer, and she's talking about when they're doing Denali. Yeah, this is like they're planning these big things like a year in advance. Like they're mapping this shit out. Like they're
yep,
prepping for it. Sure, 4 months, whatevs, it's fine.
why not? I was, oh my God, I was so clueless. I was so,
Had you done any like hiking before? I mean, okay.
no.
Can
I'm
I
telling
call
you,
you
I'm
Cheryl
in a
Stray for a
luxury.
minute? Because have you read Cheryl Stray's book? What is the one?
Oh, on the Pacific Coast Trail.
Yeah, the Pacific Coast Trail one.
Yeah. Well,
That's you.
I haven't read the book. I saw the movie.
Okay, yeah, the book is wonderful. I
Yeah.
highly recommend it. Okay.
So I now mind you, I say I haven't gone like I've gone on like the longest hike I'd gone on before I started training was probably about 4.5 miles. The longest hike before I actually went was only about 7.5 miles. It was when I was training. But
Okay.
also the highest elevation I had ever been in was Sandia Peak in where is it? Albuquerque, New Mexico. And
Okay.
Sandia Peak is about 10,000 feet.
Oh, okay. I mean,
But I drove that.
you're
I didn't even hike.
oh, I mean, you're a mile and a half up, so
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
an okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, not recommended, but
nope, not
you know,
recommended. Not recommended.
the altitude's just a little bit of just a slight issue that
Yeah, it
that
was
can happen.
there were many times on during my training, I was like, what was I thinking? But I'm also the type like when I say that I'm going to do something, especially something like this, but anytime I say I'm going to do something, especially if I say it out loud to somebody, I have to follow through. I feel like that's my
Facts.
accountability. And
I'm the same. Yep.
I posted it on Facebook, and I know a lot of people have, their own views of how social media can be a negative influence. And I totally agree with that. There's ways that I've used it to my advantage, and that is an accountability piece. And so when I said I was doing Kilimanjaro on Facebook, I had people coming out the woodworks, just giving
Mhm.
me advice, saying they were thinking of me and they're excited for me. They can't wait to see everything happen, let them know. And these are people that I hadn't talked to since kindergarten, that I
Right.
was just Facebook friends with.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing for me too. And, I wanted something physically challenging and demanding that I could do that none of my friends had done. And
Mm.
this was something that was, when I was in college, I was surrounded by elite level athletes, right?
Mhm.
When I was with the men's basketball team, we had future professional basketball players on the team, right? My best friend was an elite athlete, world-class athlete in track.
Gosh. Mhm.
I was really good friends with football players that went on to be Pro Bowlers, right?
Mhm.
I'm surrounded with all of this like all this elite athleticism, and I was jealous. And I wasn't jealous of
Mm.
them and their ability. I was just jealous I wasn't able to accomplish something like that or compete
Okay.
at that level. I didn't I did not have the ability. I always joke I don't have any fast twitch muscles. So it wouldn't have mattered how much I trained on anything. I just didn't have that ability to do something like that. And I wanted something for me physically challenging and demanding to be able to do. And that was a big part of why I decided to do Killy also, because I just wanted to prove that I could do something like that. You know, the only thing I'd done prior to that was probably run a half marathon
Mm.
a few years prior to that. I think it was, yeah, that had to have been, or no, it was a while before that. So it was like 6 or 7 years before that. But still, like, you know, that
Mhm.
was before my back surgery. So I really wanted to have something that I could say that I could brag about, that I could say that I did something, you know, something big like my friends had, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. I love it. It is. Most people have not done this. Most people don't even think about doing it. So you have your 4 months to train. Did you find a training guide? Did you hire a coach? Did you just figure it out on your own? What were we doing here?
Um, because I had done you know, because of my background as a coach, as an athlete, working
Mhm.
out, I was a fitness instructor as well. So I kind of made up my own stuff and I did a
Mm.
whole lot of cross training. And with
Mhm.
my back, I had I basically am bone on bone, my L5S1, which is, you know, the
Mm.
very base of your spine. And that's where a lot of this shock absorption comes into play. So that's why I can't run anymore
Mhm.
and I can't do any kind of plyos or anything like that. So I knew it was going to be a whole lot of cross training. And I just broke it up, you know, 3 days a week. I was in the gym doing Stairmaster and weights. 3 days a week, I was hiking. And even though I know there's not 9 days in the week, but 3 of those days I was also going to
Right.
doing cardio at a
Mhm.
fitness studio I worked at. So it's just a wide variety of stuff. And with some of the hiking and stuff, I was able to get some of my friends to come with me, and even got Coach Johnson and Gigi out there. There's a hill in Fayetteville right behind campus called Cleveland Hill, and I'm not joking. That thing is like
Mhm.
this, like
Nice.
cars rev to get up that
Oh God. Okay.
thing. And I did that as training, and that was actually really good training for parts of it. So it's just
Mhm.
a wide variety of stuff.
Yeah. Did you do that with a pack on?
I had a 5 pound vest and wore my hiking boots and like
Mhm.
all. I'm sure people thought I was really weird when I'm all in hiking stuff and my friends are in like tennis shoes or whatever. But I tried to make it as realistic as possible. When I did my spin classes, I had extra vests or whatnot, and Thanksgiving of that year, it really changed what all I had to do, because I went home and started experiencing a god awful pain that I couldn't figure out what it was. And it was like right next to my shoulder blade.
Mhm.
And no, nothing helped at all. And I couldn't raise my arm, couldn't lower it, like not,
Oof.
there's no position. I took painkillers, muscle relaxers, not at the same time, but I was trying anything that I could.
Mhm.
Um, and I was leaving for Europe. I met some friends in Switzerland, and we were going to go hiking. I thought that was good to go hiking some elements because
Yeah. Little elves. Mhm.
cold. So went there. I was in absolute pain the entire time, freaking miserable. Come back, have while I was there, I called one of the orthopedic surgeons that I knew was a specialist on shoulders, and had an MRI and had an arthrogram, the one with the dye, everything, see what's going on. Because this is also the shoulder that I had surgery on. And it
Mm.
wasn't
Mhm.
my shoulder, it was back here, but you know how things are all related.
Mm. Yeah.
Couldn't figure it out, did some rehab, but I couldn't work out.
Mm.
I couldn't even carry a pack, so the only thing I could do was go hike. And so every day for the 6 weeks leading up to it, all I could do was walk a really long distance.
Okay.
That was really, really hard.
Damn. Okay. So we got that hurdle. All right. So you said January, end of January, right?
January
Is
8th.
what January 8th. Okay, so my bad. Right. Way less time. Okay. So we get there. And how did you decide like what gear to pack? I mean, how much was your what is like a 30-pound pack or something you're wearing? Like how do
So
you make those decisions for packing?
I went with a group. I went with a company called G Adventures, and
Mhm.
they sent you a packing list of everything. We also had porters, and those are the real MVPs.
Ah, yes, you had
Yeah.
the
So
porters. Mhm.
they carry the majority. The only thing that we carried in our backpack was 3 liters of water, which
Mhm.
is not light. 3 liters of
Nope.
water is very
Nope.
heavy. Um, 3 liters of water, any kind of snacks we wanted for the day,
Mhm.
and our rain gear because weather changes in an instant. And then we also had whatever extra we wanted, whether it was a camera or GoPro, whatever else you wanted to carry, you could. But then you had a separate bag that had your sleeping bag, whatever change of
Mm,
clothes, your toiletries, all that good stuff. And those bags the porters carried along with
got it.
the tents, all the
Yep.
equipment, all of the food, all like everything else. I say in my dedication page in my book, like I say the porters, they are the real MVPs. Definitely.
Absolutely. So when you were flying over there, what was going through your mind? Any second guess, doubts of yourself, second guessing? How much of
Yes.
it was excitement for it, and how much of it was like, what the did I get myself into?
50-50.
Mm,
Actually, I'd say 60-40 more of the what did I get myself into
yeah. Hmm.
because of my shoulder issue. Like I
Yep.
for a split second before I left, I wondered whether or not I should go and or
Hmm.
figure out what my cancellation policies were. And then I was like, no, you've waited too long to do this. You need to at least go and try. And I told my travel agent that later. She's like, I wouldn't have let you cancel. There's no way you were canceling that trip. That's a good travel agent. She's awesome. But, yeah, it was like I didn't know how I was gonna hold up. I didn't know if altitude sickness was gonna affect me because it doesn't matter what shape you're in, how good a shape you're in. Altitude sickness can hit anybody.
Yep.
And, I just was like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go for it." But then it's like
Mhm.
on the way there, it's like, "Holy crap." And that was the first time I had ever traveled outside of the country completely by myself.
Okay.
And other times I'd maybe flown, to a couple times I've flown to Germany to see one of my friends from college, but she was there when I got there.
Right. Yeah. Mhm.
But this was the first time I didn't know a single person that was going. That scared me. That scared me a lot. But the excitement of going to attempt something like this is what overpowered all of the nerves and the scariness of it.
I've done two group trips where I didn't know anyone. And I did the first one when I was 15 years old,
Oh
which
wow.
I guess is, yeah, I went to Australia for 4 weeks with an exchange program and I didn't know a single soul. Um, I guess now that's not something most people do. And then I did a service trip in Costa Rica. I didn't know anyone either, but it is definitely a different thing because most people there are going with someone that they know, and you are just by yourself. But it's like I get it. Like if you really want to do something, just do it, right? Like,
Exactly, and when I got there, I wasn't there was 10 in our group, 8 of us were solo travelers.
oh, wow. Okay, that's
So it was
awesome.
great, like, and we all had the same nerves, and we were all scared about that too, like, what if we're the only person outside of the group, or what if we're the only English
Yeah, yeah.
speaking? Yeah, we were all
Yeah.
English speaking, there was, 3 Australians 3 Australians, 3 Americans, 2 Brits, and 2 New Zealanders, and the New Zealanders are the ones that knew each other. It was a
Okay.
father-daughter duo.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So we get there, we meet the group. What is base camp altitude there?
So, the way that Kili works is you fly into Arusha,
Mhm.
or excuse me, you fly into Moshi, and you start basically between Moshi and Arusha, and there is where the front gate is about 8,000 feet.
Mm.
And, I chose the Lemosho route, which was an 8-day route. So we started on Friday afternoon and
Mhm.
finished Friday afternoon, but we summited Thursday morning.
Okay.
So the purpose of that route is you have a long day, short day, long day, short day. So long is usually 6 hours worth of hiking, short is about
Mm.
4 and shorter distance. And each time you're going up and then you kind of come down a little,
Yep.
then there's your
Mhm.
camp, go up, come down a little, there's your camp, so on and so on. And so it was, I wanted to give myself, if I was flying all the way over there, I wanted to give myself the best opportunity to make it. And the Lemosho route is what I felt like would, because it gave you the most amount of days to acclimatize to the altitude.
Absolutely, because it's what you said. Thursday is when you summited,
Hmm.
and you came back Friday, so kind of
Hmm.
2 days to get down, and a good number of days to get up.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes it sense. What would be like if someone was like, "Yeah, I'm doing this." What is the shortest route available?
4 days.
Woo! Okay.
Yeah, that's insane.
You-
Like no, I'm good. I like the route that I took. But 4 days, like there were a lot of people that were doing it. I don't remember. I think it's the Mashamane route.
mhm,
But yeah, you get up there real quick and you start at a different point
mhm.
and it's clearly you're going, it's a lot steeper because you've got you're starting at a different point and you've got a lot more ground to cover.
Jesus. So we're starting at 8,000 feet.
Mhm.
What is the summit?
19,000.
Oh shit!
How do I know 19 50? It's 5891 meters, 94 5894 meters. So it's 19,340 41 feet.
Yeah, 19,000 feet. Okay, okay. So we're summiting over 10,000 feet in a week. That's not a problem at all. Okay, so let's talk about the actual climb.
Mhm.
Like going through it. How is your first of all? How is your body adjusting to altitude? How is your shoulder doing? How are your feet holding up? Are we getting blisters? Did we hike well? All of these things. Talk about all those.
So the night before we left, I did not sleep a wink. Like, no cat nap, no
No,
nothing.
no.
Between the time change, because it's an 8-hour, it was an 8-hour time difference.
Hmm.
Between that, the adrenaline, and everything else, I didn't sleep at all. And luckily, that day was a short day, but it was 4
Yeah.
hours.
Mm,
And, now it was a 4-hour hike. We had to be ready at 10 o'clock. Had to drive the 2 hours to the front gate, weigh
mhm,
everything, have lunch, drive the hour to the gate that we're starting at. Uh, I couldn't sleep because I was too excited. Like, what am I going to miss on this drive? Like, what if we see animals?
mhm,
What if we see, like, who knows what you're going to see?
mhm.
I've never been here before. So the adrenaline was just running through me. I was freaking exhausted that first day. Didn't want to be there. It was horrid. I was questioning life. Why am I here? What am I doing to myself? But I made it. And the days didn't necessarily get easier at all. Um, Ironically, yeah, I didn't realize until the very last day, my shoulder never felt anything. My back never
Hmm.
hurt. My shoulder was never hurt. My knees never hurt. My feet were sore, but they
Mhm.
never hurt. And I honestly attribute that to the fact that I was basically walking through a natural cryo machine because the temperatures after the second day were steady in the 40s. And
Okay.
it was just that nice, cool air that felt good on the joints. At least it did
Mm,
for me. And
okay.
so, no blisters, thank the Lord. That was one thing I did make sure to do when I was packing everything. I made sure I had the right gear because I don't like cold weather, so I didn't want to be cold, and I don't like I don't like wet socks, and I don't like blister. Like, I mean, who does
Oh,
like socks or
mm,
blisters? But I wanted to make sure that I had the right stuff, and so
yep. Mhm.
I made sure to get that, and I really think that helped. The only thing that ended up happening was on the ascent, because you go down really fast. Because we
Right.
summited 8:30 Thursday morning. We're out of the park the next day by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and so the way down felt a lot of toes hitting the front of front of my boots. And about a week later, when I got home, I lost a toenail. But that was
Yeah,
the only
that's
thing.
it. Mhm.
And it just like slipped out. Like I took off my sock and I noticed, I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't look right. I looked down, I'm like, oh, I'm missing a toenail.
Yep, I've had one just
Pop right off.
bye. Like, oh, this is my nail. But
Yeah.
when mine came off, I had a whole nother like half of one growing right underneath it. It was just getting ready to, you're
Yeah.
gone.
Yep. So that
uh,
thankfully that was having the right gear was whew, that's key, man.
mhm.
That is so key.
So we're talking first, kind of the external things, right? What's going on with your body internally? Internally, what are we thinking during this? Like, how much of it still as you're going, this is why am I doing this? Or at a certain point, you just kind of get into the flow and like kind of, have that, I don't say spiritual awakening. Did that happen? Let's talk about the internal.
So as a competitor, you're always taught that the way that you win is if you come in first place, right?
Hmm.
And every single day on the mountain, I was coming in dead last.
Okay.
That killed me because to
Mm.
me, that meant I wasn't doing good. That meant I wasn't succeeding and I wasn't getting to where I needed to go because I'm last out of 10 people. And some of them, like, if, looking at them, it made me mad because I'm like, these people, some of these people are out of shape, right? There's no reason that they should. And that was my naive thinking.
Mm.
And I was so defeated mentally. And
Hmm.
on the third day, one of our guides asked me, Moses, I talk a lot about Moses in my book. And he asked me what was wrong. And I was like, oh, nothing. I'm fine. And he was like, no, really, what's wrong? And I was like, well, I'm coming in dead last. Like, that's awful. And he was like, Jodi, you realize there's no prize for finishing first, right? I kind of looked at him. He's like, somebody's already done that. He said, you're winning by finishing every day. And I was like,
Mm.
huh. And mind you, he has a Tanzanian accent to go along with it. So it just sounds more profound and
Oh,
poetic
yeah.
when he says it. But it like I heard him, but it didn't click. Nothing really clicked until the summit night. There was when we were halfway up, I really contemplated, I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, why am I even here? But then I'm like, well, shit, I'm halfway up already. Like,
Hmm.
I gotta go all the way. Might as well keep going, right?
Yep.
And I talk about that in my book, like the different hours of the summit night and what happened. And it really came down. It was in the fifth hour. I had the WTF moment. Why am I doing this? What do I got to prove? I don't give a shit. What am I doing here? And then I thought about coming back to Fayetteville, telling people I didn't make it. And there's one person in particular that I thought of his response. And it was, well, I don't know why you tried to do that. I didn't think you were gonna make it anyway. Mind you, I don't
Mm.
even like this person. And why his reaction really even came to me. He's just one of those like energy vampires. He's just
Hmm.
always negative and drains energy. For whatever reason, his reaction, I was like, F this, F him, F everybody else. I don't care. I'm going to keep going because I want to do this for me. Like even though I said I wanted to do it for me, like it became a different reason why I wanted to do it for me. And after that, it got so much easier mentally. Physically, it was still extremely difficult because that summit was no joke. But mentally, it was so much easier and it really felt like weight had been lifted. And I don't know if you've ever heard the term mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. And so basically
Hmm.
anything in I've heard it a lot in sports, like growing up, coaching, I used it a lot, but mental is to physical as 4 is to 1. So
Mm.
mentally, things are going to be 4 times harder than it is physically, right? And so because that mental aspect got so much easier for me, I was able to concentrate more on the physical part of it. And so my mindset really had to shift on the mountain because what I knew as a competitor and everything and the training and everything, that's what got me to the mountain. But I had to make that mindset shift on the mountain, and that's what got me to the top.
That's I don't know if it was Coach Johnson or a different coach of mine, like kind of in the mental thing. And one thing that got me through a lot of my hard workouts in college, it was like if we're doing a set of like 8 300s, number 5 and 6 are going to be the hardest. Like that was like my mental thing because it's like you're halfway through, but you still gotta let go in, and the pain's starting to kick in. And that's when, and so whenever I'm doing workout, like something in me, it still to this day, when I'm like a little bit over half, like that 60-70%, I'm like, this is the mentally the hardest part of the workout. Let's go. And
Mhm.
that has carried me. I don't know which coach it was that taught me that or kind of said that, but that is stuck. That is definitely stuck in my mind. And so, and I've told other people like, yeah, this is the hardest part. Like, no, we're not at 8 yet. It's like, no, this is the hardest part, because then there's only going to be, one left or two left. But right now, this shit sucks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so what was going through your mind when you did summit? Like right when you hit it, when you hit the summit, you have summited, we have done it, we have reached the peak.
So Kilimanjaro is interesting because Stella Point is basically where the mountain kind of flattens out and all of
Mhm.
the routes come together. So from Stella Point, you have another 700 meters to Uhuru Peak, which is the very top, and
Okay.
you can see it. And 700 meters, you know how far that is as a track person.
Absolutely do.
It took 50 minutes to go 700
Right, because it's
meters.
probably so straight up.
And so when you see the sign, like this is the sign, like you see this all the time
Yeah.
on all over the internet, everything. And I can see it in the distance, and it's just like, okay, like you want to go really fast, but your body just can't. And so I got really sad. I started seeing these two people walking back, and it was two of the people from my group. And I started crying out, and I was like, what happened? I'm sorry. I wanted to get there in time to take a group picture because I was so far. I was 30 minutes behind everybody.
Mm.
And it was Jessica and Andy, and they both started feeling some altitude sickness. And they're like, don't worry about
Mm.
it. We took our pictures and we left because we're trying to get back down. And I
Mm.
felt really bad because Jessica, I talk about this in my book as well, like how she had helped me early in the week, being there for me. And I just felt bad. I wanted to, I wanted to have that big group picture, and I
Sure.
apologized and I gave her a hug and I was like, "Thank you. I wouldn't have been able to do this without you." And that was actually about halfway to the sign.
Mm.
And then I get to the sign, and luckily there weren't a whole lot of people to take pictures or whatever. And I was able to take my picture with a very tired smile, and I have another couple pictures where I just got my head leaning on the sign. It's like, "Oh, I'm so exhausted," and then I made the worst mistake I could have ever made at that moment. I sat down.
No, don't do it.
Oh, we sat down to take our group picture, and, like,
No.
I sat down, felt great, like, the snow there it wasn't, like, it wasn't horrible with the weather or whatnot.
Hmm.
The snow felt good to sit on, like, the cold and everything, and then I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to get up from here. This is not gonna be easy." So, got up and, I tried to take a jumping picture because I take jumping pictures wherever I go.
Yeah.
Yeah, my feet got, like, 2 inches off the ground. I was like, "This ain't
You
working."
cleared a credit card. Yay.
Oh, it was awful. I cracked up, and we spent about 30 minutes up there. You're
Mhm.
only supposed to they say you only spend, like, 10 to 15 because the rule is that, like, I'm pretty sure for most of the companies that if you have to take oxygen on your summits that night, then
Mm.
that is going to be your summit, and you
Mm.
have to go
Okay.
back down, and so that was
Got
another
it.
don't take the oxygen. But because again, you're up at 19,000 feet, they don't want you spending too much time up there
No.
because you still gotta get back down, and they
Yeah.
want you to do so safely. But it was just like a glorious moment, and then just looking out over, like, you obviously you can see forever as long as it's clear, through some of the clouds or whatnot, and it was gorgeous, and then it was, like, kind of like, "So what do we do now?" We gotta go back down.
Can't go down. Where's the helicopter?
Exactly. Like, "Oh, we got here, yay, but now we gotta go back down, yay." And we did, so
Oh,
we went back down.
yeah. So that like that whole journey that has pivoted your entire career. So after this, is this when I mean, you obviously wrote the book, getting into that motivational speaking, all of this. I mean, talk about a pivotal moment, you know?
It was, and all those people that were wanting to, hear the story and everything, I didn't wanna tell the story 50 million times, and especially having an awkward conversation with that person from kindergarten you hadn't talked to, but I wanted to tell them the story, so I did a Facebook
Yeah.
Live, and,
Okay.
I'd actually did after Kili, I did a safari as well, so I talked about the entire trip
Oh,
on
yeah.
that
Oh,
Facebook
amazing.
Live, and I had several people tell me afterwards, they're like, "You should really speak about this."
Mm,
I was like, "Really?" So I asked a few of my friends who were still in the in the collegiate athletic world, not just in on coaching, but some of the administration and stuff. Like, would this really be something people would want to hear about? They all agreed. They thought so.
hmm
I was like, all
I
right,
agree.
why not? And so then I started speaking, and that was actually when. After that is when I wrote the first book of my life in the
hmm
50 states.
Ah, okay.
I had already started I didn't plan on that being a book, but I'd started writing down different stories of trips that I'd been to, things that happened in all the different states. And so that turned into my first book. And then obviously, and that was 2019. I did some speaking that fall, and we all know what happened the next year. So did some online stuff or whatnot, and
hmm
ended up being asked to help co-author another book called Athletes to Entrepreneurs. And
hmm
I was the only former coach. Everybody else was a former collegiate athlete.
Mm,
And it's our story of going from athletics to entrepreneurship. And then all this time I planned on writing the Kilimanjaro book, and it just, for whatever reason, stuff just started happening. And I finally released it last May, so it's almost a year now. So,
mm,
um, it's I love it. It's like I said, it was my story, and it was crazy to write. It's still crazy to see that it's in print, it's on Amazon. It's just like it's
mhm.
something that I did. Had 0 clue, that I would ever write a book, let alone 3, be a part of 3 of them. But it was absolutely amazing, and has just led into so many other things. And there is a 4th book. I haven't figured out exactly, but it's just, I want it to be like lessons learned from all of
Mhm,
the travels, and like what I talked about at the beginning, which is, experiencing different cultures and
mhm.
that kind of thing. So we'll see how that goes.
I love it. So what occupies your time, now? Is it more, and sorry, we have a visitor. Is it more, are like, because you talk about your entrepreneurship, like what really kind of occupies your day? Like what does your day look like? A week, a month, however you want to break it out.
I'm doing a lot. I'm really trying to get more, because I had been speaking to a lot of athletes, and teams and whatnot, and just figuring out other ways and other groups of people to talk to. And I ended up, a year and a half ago, going through a program and got certified to be a mindset coach. And so
Mhm.
I'm starting to work on that side of the business more, and starting to take clients with that, and just working with high performers. High performers are not just athletes, there's execs, business executives and whatnot.
Absolutely.
Just anybody really wanting to take their life, whatever aspect of it may be, to the next level. And so just really trying to launch, and get all of that rolling. And I am not like business and all that kind of stuff. That is not my forte. Like the speaking, the coaching, absolutely love it. And if that's all I had to do, I'd be a lot further along. But it's like all the business side of stuff is
You
like
got to
trying
do
to line it out.
taxes and all that little that
Ugh,
fun stuff.
not my jam,
Yeah.
but I'm learning.
Yeah. And when I was reading, when you said it on, your website, talk about mindset coaching, and I've spoken about him multiple times on the show. Penn State had a sports psychologist. We called him Dave Eukelson. Honestly, he is things that I learned from him. I still take it with me like throughout these years. Like just like I
Mhm.
take that little, the 60-70% is the hardest,
Mhm.
mentally you'll get through it. Just, the relaxation exercise that we would do, all these like internal things. And I ran my best race probably ever in college at my last home meet my senior year indoors, and he was right by the start line. And I can't remember if he said, I think he said, trust yourself. Just like the way his mannerism, I had my best PR ever. And I was like, so I want to take you, could put him in my pocket and have him everywhere with me. But it's so important. It's like the mental part of sports is like, God, I wish I, had that in high school. You know what I mean? It's like, you just wish, like, when you're at the end of your career, you're like, I'm kind of figuring this out now. Like, I wish I had that like mental fortitude. And I mean, I'm a pretty gritty, mentally tough person, but like, I wish I had all the skills
Right.
wrapped in one. You know what I mean? When you're like 17,
Mhm.
18 years old, like, wow, I love
And
it.
that's what, so a friend of mine who she played basketball here at Arkansas, and she went through this program the year before I did, and
Hmm.
that's basically why she wanted to do it. She works with high school athletes because
Hmm.
she wishes she could have had something like that in high school and in college because they didn't have anything like that. And I mean, it was like Shanna was speaking when you were just speaking just then, because that's exactly what she says as well.
Hmm. It's right, because when more and more schools have them now, but Penn State was like probably one of the earlier adapters of the whole sports
Mhm.
psychology thing. And it was like, oh, you guys get a credit for doing your mental toughness class, blah blah. But oh my God, talk about a class, a single easy credit that I still take with me to this day and still use those things. Like, you can't tell me that that wasn't important. And it's like, like my regular job, like, I'm pretty much never stressed. People stress out about stuff, and I'm like,
That's
no
what's
one's gonna die, and no one, like, I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I went to college, like, part of my college was paid for running around a track one time, one try. This is just a corporate job. It's easy, not
yeah,
easy, but you know what I mean.
that's what we were me and Shannon were actually talking about before, is like how much sport really does um prepare kids, even though a lot of times they don't realize it at the moment. And a friend of mine who he actually works for Nike now.
Mhm.
He was at Walmart. He works for Nike now. He was a collegiate basketball player, and he says he's like, if he ever has anybody, any of his bosses or whatever, uh, they bring something to him, any kind of problems or whatever, whether it's, something he needs to solve or something that he did or whatever, he's just like, all right, cool. We're going to solve, I'm
Mhm.
ready. Let's figure how, how we're going to solve this, blah, blah, blah. And he said, people stress, his coworkers will get so offended the way sometimes people talk to him or whatever. He's like,
Mhm.
I had coaches talk to me 10 times worse than this.
Man.
Not saying that that's
Ugh.
necessarily the
No
thing, but the way that sports prepares you for tough and stressful situations.
feedback, to taking critical feedback is
Mhm,
like, if you can't take feedback, you cannot succeed in sports. Absolutely. So you're my manager at my work. Okay. Like,
mhm.
it's amazing. Some people do absolutely break down if there is any piece of negative something, you know what I mean? And it's like, for me, it's like, tell me, tell me how to be better. Like, literally my whole life has been like, tell me how to get better, because that's what my coach is there for. Like,
Yep.
you know Chris Johnson. he he'll tell you about yourself.
In a heartbeat, whether you ask or not.
Oh my God, when
And if you
Gigi
ask, it's
said,
gonna be a whole lot more.
oh, when Gigi said, when him saying, those tears don't affect me. Oh my Lord, I could hear him saying, your tears, those tears don't affect me.
I can see him just looking her up like, no, that's not gonna, no.
Yeah, but yeah, it's like the ability to take that feedback and hear someone say that and know they still have your best interest at heart.
And that's the thing because he's able to that and that's what I believe makes him so good is because that's what makes any coach good is when the athlete knows that you care about them. Because what does it say? They don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care.
Yeah,
That is totally Chris. But his athletes will know how much he cares about them, and that's why they're able to take to adapt to his coaching.
absolutely.
And that's why they're able to succeed with his coaching. Um,
Absolutely.
but that's with any accomplished coach, like those kids are gonna know how much they care. And so they're willing to run through a brick wall for you.
Absolutely. And I know I need to get him on this show. Gigi was talking about doing both of the Johnson brothers because I also know Chris would lie to you when you needed to lie. And I swear, because there were times coming back from like an injury where I was mentally very like defeated. You know, I've been in physical pain, like ow. Talk about spending time in the training room, and he'd be like, "I need you to do this workout. I need you to do this distance at this time." I'm like, "There's no way in hell I hit that time." But he tell me you did, so you feel better about yourself. And I remember one particular one. I'm like, I know I didn't do it. I know I did not run that in these fucking tennis shoes. So I'm not allowed to be in spikes yet. But he told me I did, and he was proud of me. God damn it, fine. But I knew I was like, I knew I didn't do it. I knew I didn't do it. I knew he lied to me, Chris Johnson. I had to ask him this, but I just
God,
still
if you had him and Boogie on, oh Lord Jesus, you would not get a word in.
no, I sure wouldn't. I'd be like,
It would be very
I
entertaining. Yeah, you'd
yeah, I
meet
mean,
it well.
I say I can actually mute people on here, so I'd be like, all right, or temporarily remove someone and put them back
Oh
in. We're having to
shoot.
take a time out, guys, and sit in your little corners. But I do love that. You know, I do think that is such an important thing. High schoolers, college people, business executives, anyone, you know, how many people in this country struggle, you know, with mental health or self-doubt or all those things, and things like what you're doing can help people succeed in multiple areas of life, right? Because I heard some feedback. It was like, not feedback, but it was like the things that you struggle with at work are usually things you struggle with in your personal life as well. And it, you know, like like can I be a little abrasive and bossy sometimes in my personal life? Yes. Can I be like, you know what I mean? I'm certainly not timid and weak and meek at work. No one's ever told me that.
Right.
It's like soften the message share. um so yeah, but I remember hearing that, and it's like that is it just creates the whole person, right? No one's siloed, like this is work self and this is out. It's usually, and if they are that siloed, they usually explode
Yes.
somewhere because you can't have that.
And that's, you know, and people just I really believe people just want to know that it's normal, like other people go through those things. And
Mhm.
that's why I feel like telling my story is different because I'm an ordinary person that happened to do one extraordinary thing, right? I am not some huge mountain.
Debatable, but okay.
Well, it's like I'm not some huge mountaineering woman or whatever. Like people
Mhm.
ask me, are you going to do it? You going to do Everest? Hell no. I might go to base camp, and that's only because one of the guys that went with me to kill that I met on the trip, he did base camp, and he was like, "Jodi, base camp is way easier than Kilimanjaro." I was like, "Oh, cool." But and they'll ask me like, "Are you going to do Kili again?" My first reaction was hell no. And now it's like
Yeah.
if somebody like if this group wanted to do it again in 20 years or something, or if
Mhm.
I had somebody that wanted to do it to commemorate something, I would think
Mhm.
about it, right? But I just try and I'm not in what people think of as an elite athlete. I haven't
Right. Mhm.
summited, you know, all the major seven summits or anything. I climbed a really big mountain and
Mhm.
it's I understand it was a big accomplishment, but I also feel like I can relate to so many people in so many different areas because of the struggles that I have had,
Mhm.
the thoughts that I've had, the surgeries that I had, you know, just different obstacles that
Mhm.
almost kept me from doing that. But I went ahead and did it. And I actually had a lady that used to come to my workout classes. I live in Fayetteville. For those that don't really know Northwest Arkansas, I lived in Fayetteville, or do live in Fayetteville. And Northwest Arkansas is Fayetteville, Springdale, Bentonville, and Rogers.
Hmm.
And Bentonville is 30 miles from Fayetteville. And she told me, I saw you travel to Africa and that was amazing. And she said, you really got me outside, thinking to get outside my comfort zone. And she said she doesn't even like going to Bentonville by herself. That's
Wow.
30 miles away. And she said that she saw something, if I'm willing to overcome my fears of traveling by myself halfway around the world, then she should try and take the step of just going to Bentonville to go by herself to go do something. And so it was just like, wow, that was really
Yeah.
impactful for me that she saw that, was able to relate it. So that's why I want to share that and talk to people and coach with people about that even though in your head you may think that you're ordinary, there are extraordinary things that you do.
I love that. Yeah, I had, we were talking about a little bit earlier about the accountability. I had posted one of my goals for, I do Spartan OCR races, and I had a friend comment something of like, I remember you seeing that, this was your goal and you accomplished it. Like, congratulations. And like, oh man, thanks. It's like, you remembered when I said that this is like what I was seeking to do. Like, oh, there's kind of that, oh, people actually pay attention to that. Cool. Because again, I'm a retired athlete, man. I'm just out here running with my age group. Like, I'm not at Penn State anymore.
Right.
But yeah, you have to, like, there's different phases of life, and there's a lot of different things that you can do. And
Yeah,
I love that.
one of them on my Instagram every morning. I say every morning, 95% of the mornings, I post a picture and it's a quote. I have a little quote board, with the little
Hmm.
letters that you can change in and out or whatever. And I post a quote every day. And there was when I think it's when I had COVID. I was down for the count for like 3 weeks when I had COVID in 2021, and
Oof.
people were text messaging me like, "Where's the quotes? What's going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, like you see people see your story, but you don't really
Hmm.
know how many people actually pay attention to it."
Right.
And that made me feel good that people saw it. And so actually started a free text messaging quote thing. So you can sign up for it. It's
Oh,
absolutely free. Comes to your phone every morning. And a couple times there's been glitches or whatever, and I'll get text messages from my friends that have subscribed. They're like, "Hey, we didn't get our text this morning. Where's it at?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me go check and see what happened or whatever." So even though like people like you're not sure if you're putting it out there, like people are watching and they do see, and it your story, for me, if it affects one person, then that's amazing, right? And it's
yeah.
just being able to give people a different perspective or give people just a little glimpse of hope. And I tell people all the time, most of the time when I write those quotes, it's it's for me. I share
Mm,
it with everybody else, but a lot of the times it's because I needed that quote on that day. And so they're not the only ones that are struggling or that it can hit home with them. And some of them are funny, some of them are really serious, and some of them are just a swift kick in the ass that we all need every now and then.
I love it. I will be signing up for that.
Awesome.
I love it. So final question for you. It's a big one, small one, however you want to do it. But what is on the horizon for Jodi in 2023, 2024? We've climbed Killy. We've written books. I know we have other books. What would you say if you don't have a vision board? Thinking if you did, what is that thing? Where are we going?
Um, last year my vision was on my vision board was progress. I always
Hmm.
choose a word and then everything around it for progress. And this year I really had a hard time figuring out what exactly, because my new year actually started in Antarctica. So I crossed off all 7 continents. And so
God damn it. All right. I'm going to schedule another things I need to hear about this. But okay, we'll talk about this later.
and so like that kind of, it honestly, it kind of got put to the back burner. But in 2023, it's launch. Like I want to
Mm,
launch myself into the next phase, and the next phase of my personal life, my business life, and just seeing where that takes me. And it reminds me of, like, there's a meme that said it's something like, you've got to take this first step even if you don't know exactly where it's going, or something like that. I think I kind of screwed that up. But basically, you don't know, you've got to take this first step even though you don't know where it's going to. Well, I've taken what I thought were steps before. I really need to just launch myself and just pray that there's the airbag on the other side and there's soft landing spot for me, um, because it's time. And so,
mhm,
um, I had a lot of travel at the beginning of the year, and I do coach AAU basketball, and so
mhm,
I said that the only travel for now until probably August will be either to go see my mom in South Texas, or basketball, and just kind of enjoying home, enjoying the people around me right now. But I do have a trip in October planned to go do Machu Picchu in Peru, as long as the country is safe enough to do so, because it got closed for a little while at the beginning of the year. So so that is a plan. Figuring out this fourth book and lessons of traveling and everything is also on the horizon. So, but I'm also, I mean, I signed up to do Kili on a whim, so there's no telling what else. I signed up to do highly do not recommend. I signed up to do a marathon 6 weeks before the actual marathon.
oh, okay. There we
Yeah.
go.
So I started Kili in 2019, and I finished with the marathon in 2019. And I'm glad I did it, because then obviously COVID hit and my back wasn't getting any better. So
Nope. Well, I
yeah.
love it. Well, thank you so much for being on here. I could keep asking you a zillion questions on about Antarctica, but I understand we all have bedtimes, and the show cannot go on forever. But I thank you so much. It has been wonderful. To quote you, what was it? It's not about finishing first; it's about winning. Ah, I love it. I
Thank you
absolutely
so
love
much for having me. I
it.
really appreciate it. This was fun.
Absolutely. And on that note,
This has been a Chicago Clubhouse Network production.
bye.